Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on The Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on The Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. You know, every once in a while you run into someone that just has the most amazing idea. It's ingenious, it's creative, it's innovative, and it has the chance to change the world, at least change our country and maybe the world. And I met Murray Simser a couple of months ago, and he pitched me on a company called Citizen, which is a fascinating company because it's using the internet and polling, and he wants to change democracy. Murray is a fascinating guy. He spent a bunch of time in politics in Canada, then he moved to the States and made some money working for some of the biggest, most well-known internet information technology computer companies. Now he's come back to Toronto and he's formed this company, Citizen, and he wants to change our democracy and make it more participative. Fascinating. Murray, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Brian, for having me. I'm great.
So tell me, what is Citizen?
So, Citizen is a genuine attempt to express the will of the people in each democracy. We believe that today, fundamentally speaking, democracy is a little broken.
A little?
Just a tad. And the best evidence we have are the studies that are done by reputable organizations like Stanford, who have demonstrated that about 70% of people won't listen to anything, including evidence, to change their minds. And if you read history, that doesn't augur well for our societies. And in fact, if you measure it by the Edelman Trust Barometer or the Economist Intelligence Unit, the Democracy Index, two of the most credible organizations to measure this sort of thing, democracies aren't just failing, they're in full retreat. There are less than 5 full democracies left on this earth.
What?
And last year, we lost two or three democracies, including Hong Kong. This is not a small thing. There are Eastern European countries coming apart, 5 of them, and we're sitting in one of them.
What are the 5?
Well, as you might expect, they're Scandinavian, they're Canadian, and they're Oceanian. So it's the...
Is the U.S. considered a full democracy or not?
It's not. Neither is the United Kingdom. Neither is France, Germany, and all the... If none of those countries, the G7 are full democracy.
So why is the United States not a full democracy? Just out of interest.
So the
electoral college system, or?
Well, there's a balanced scorecard that these companies use to sort of evaluate them. There's 40 or 50 different measures: freedom of the press, freedom of access to information, all the sort of usual suspects. The ability for somebody's voice to be heard, the people, the political class representing the sort of people class of countries. And on every single measure in 100 democracies, all of them have retreated since 2012. Yeah. And 2012 is an important year because something happened that year that changed everything and started, for the first time in 500 years, the retreat of democracies.
What happened in 2012?
In 2012, the amount of information that was consumed by an individual was overtaken by social media algorithms, meaning the information that a person consumed, generally speaking, was increasingly mediated by these algorithms. Now, these algorithms in and of themselves don't represent a challenge or a threat to anything in particular, but by virtue of their nature, meaning they want to manipulate you, they want to get you to look at something and spend more time on it, they choose the things that you see. And in the choosing, they are affecting behavior modification writ large in every democracy. And so, for instance, somebody goes out of curiosity to look at what is for instance, extremist behavior. They will end up in a cesspool of
extremist behavior.
That's horrible. And some people don't have the ability to get out of that hole once they're in it. And it's the tales of the distribution.
You know, I got to tell you, I probably made a stupid mistake. I didn't even know what QAnon was all about like a year or two ago, right? And so I think it was It was around just before January 6th of last year.
Right.
I Googled QAnon because I wanted to figure out what it was all about. I got inundated with stuff all about QAnon. I couldn't get on the internet without someone advertising a QAnon something or other to me.
100%. And herein lies the problem. Now, fast forward from 2012 to now, almost all of our interactions are mediated by 6 or 7 different algorithms. So again, the news feed, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, think about the way you and I communicate.
Yeah.
In the same way, if all of our communication between each other and all of our communication between us and the government is mediated by an algorithm that wants to sell ads, it's highly likely that the information that is being given to me and the stuff that I'm giving back is unrelated to what's in my best interest.
Okay, so social media and algorithms is the problem. Why don't we just outlaw algorithms?
Well, so this is. I'm not a big government fan because I think governments make bad decisions, like outlawing algorithms. Algorithms are the future of humanity. Okay, everything about our future is based on algorithms. All of these algorithms are a necessary condition for human life to continue and evolve. And I'll say why. We are producing information, so much information in a 1 month period of time, it's almost more information being produced now than was produced in all of human history before.
Okay.
That quantity of information cannot be consumed by a human being. It's just not possible. And therefore, you can never index it or triage it or organize it without an algorithm. So, for instance, if we took Google search away, what would you replace it with? You couldn't access the 20 or 30 or 40 billion pages of information that are out there and make any sense of it. Algorithms are necessary, but I think like anything, they have to be fit for purpose. In cars, we all know that there are small little cars that are efficient and very large trucks for doing things. In social media, we have one size fits all. Democracy shouldn't be managed by an algorithm that's looking to sell ads, okay? It's as simple as that.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be managed by an algorithm. The algorithm is important, but the algorithm itself shouldn't be outlawed. It should be controlled by the people that have an interest in the algorithm's behavior. And that's what citizens based on. The people will control the algorithm.
Okay. But then you got to have a lot of trust in the people.
You definitely do have to have a lot of trust.
You know, I think I saw a show just this weekend on gerrymandering in the United States where the jurisdictions, the boundaries for jurisdictions were controlled by the people, and they were all controlling it for their own benefit, their own specific benefit, both Democrats and Republicans.
As Churchill is famous for saying, you know, the democracy is the absolute worst system except for all the others. Control by the people is as good as it gets, okay? If the people can't look into something and see what's in their interest, I'm not sure what else could. But I'll say this. You must not allow oppression of the masses to replace the current system that we have today. The reason that we have representative democracy, where somebody who has fought to have that position goes to Ottawa, is because that person then can focus on the task of doing that business. The mass can't do that. Okay, the government still has to be the government. What we need to do is we need to have an algorithm that's controllable by the people that disallows oppression of the masses or rule by the majority.
Okay, so give me an example of what is Citizen going to do, this algorithm that you're creating?
Yeah. So again, I'll reference the study American One Room that I talked about at the very beginning. Moderated discourse is the answer. The entire
moderated discourse.
Moderated discourse is the key. The question is, how do you then interpret, you know, sort of debate-style structure? If you think about that as the basis, we know that works. That was sort of the Enlightenment principle that came to the fore in all forms of democracy the world over.
I don't think anyone that's watched a leadership debate in the United States or Canada in the last little while would say we have moderated discourse. We just have yelling and screaming and interrupting.
That's not moderated discourse. That's yelling and screaming like a bunch of tantrum children with a teacher that can't control the kids. You actually need to have a moderated environment with some power. The Speaker of the House, okay, it has power and can call members to the bar if they misbehave. That power means that even the people who are at each other's throats in Parliament are behaving, but as you rightly pointed out, they're not answering each other's questions, making the legislative process a joke. We can't have a direct democracy-style system like Citizen that makes that kind of behavior exist everywhere. And as you rightly pointed out, people are 70% interactively opposed to getting along, talking, or discussing. So we've created a system that we're not going to explain specifically yet, but when we launch it, The function of the system will be to create informed consent of the government. And the goal of the algorithm will be to achieve that, not AdSense.
So the system will provide informed consent to the governed.
The system will output the wishes of the people.
So somehow you're going to, the way you described it to me before, somehow you're going to poll people.
Correct. Polling's a way for people to understand the concept. Polling companies are polling companies. We don't intend to replace polling companies. In fact, we intend to provide this data to polling companies. They can do their work. Our data is what's valuable inside of Citizen. The data set that we create will be the single most predictive data set in each polity on Earth, full stop. And it orders of magnitude more predictive than anything that's out there polling, all the rest of the stuff. We believe polling companies and AI sentiment analysis companies will want this data. They'll want to buy it. And that forms the basis of a business model that allows us to create a whole bunch of money, and this is where it becomes really important, create a whole bunch of money that goes into a fund that the people then control themselves. So this is more than just we're going to listen to the people and we're going to talk to the people. This is the people telling the government what they would like to see in a structure that doesn't allow cuckoo and disallows bias and disallows screaming matches and all the rest of it. And we've spent 2 or 3 years building that structure to make sure that it works. And as you've seen with my ambassador board that I've sort of surrounded myself with, the reason I've done that is because to formulate the structure that I'm talking about took a lot of minds to come together and really sort of test and stress test the system. And we think we've got it. We can actually make Canadians talk to each other. We can actually make Canadians make suggestions to the government, policy recommendations. We can even output policy recommendations that are right across the spectrum that politicians can then just very simply say, yeah, we'll do that. Now, if I can create electoral harmony for anybody who's in office, rather than them having to come out with great big wedge issues and have us fight with each other, my thesis is that's better for our democracy.
It's a very idealistic, wonderful objective. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Murray Simser in just a minute on his idea of Citizen, which is this algorithm, this website, this system that's going to poll us, know our views, know our opinions, and it's going to provide information to our elected representatives so they can govern us better. Sounds pretty fantastic to me. Stay with us, everybody.
अगर खुशियां गिनने का मीटर होता तो साफ दिख जाता सऊदी अरब वाले असगर भाई की इतनी, दुबई में सलमान और शाहिदा बाजी की इतनी, बर्तानिया से राशिद चचा और अमेरिका वाले आसिम साहब की ना सिर्फ इतनी खुशियां बढ़ चुकी हैं बल्कि बढ़ती ही जा रही हैं। इन सब के साथ साथ दीगर पाकिस्तानी भी ढेरों खुशियां समेट रहे हैं सोनी धरती रेमिटेंस प्रोग्राम के शानदार रिवॉर्ड पॉइंट्स के साथ। तो बैंक्स और एक्सचेंज कंपनी से रकम भेजते रहिए और हासिल करते रहें रिवॉर्ड पॉइंट्स के बदले फ्री सर्विसेज, इंटरनेशनल एयर टिकट्स, टैक्स और ड्यूटी पेमेंट्स, शिनाख्ती दस्तावेजात की रिन्यूअल, इंश्योरेंस पेमेंट्स, यूटिलिटी स्टोर से खरीदारी और बहुत सारी सहूलियात। आज ही सोनी धरती ऐप डाउनलोड कीजिए और रजिस्टर हो जाइए, क्योंकि आपके दम से ही है पाकिस्तान की तरक्की और खुशहाली। सोनी धरती रेमिटेंस प्रोग्राम हमेशा अपनों के करीब। हुकूमत पाकिस्तान, स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान और मालियाती इदारों की जानिब से एक अहम कदम।
रोशन, तू फिर पाकिस्तान आ गया?
क्या करूं भाईजान, इधर के काम ही नहीं खत्म होते।
छोटा मुंह बड़ी बात करने लगा हूँ।
खैर ये तो आप तकल्लुफ ही कर रहे हैं।
बड़ी अहम बात है, गौर से सुन। दुबई वापस जाते ही ऑनलाइन रोशन डिजिटल अकाउंट खुलवाओ।
ये जो बैंक ऑफ पंजाब ने शुरू किया हुआ है?
हाँ, स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान की हदायत पर ओवरसीज पाकिस्तानियों के लिए सहूलत है। इधर देख, प्रदेश से घर के बिल अदा करने हो, पैसे भिजवाने हो, नया पाकिस्तान सर्टिफिकेट या स्टॉक मार्केट में सरमायाकारी करनी हो, गाड़ी निकलवानी हो, अपने घर के लिए कर्ज चाहिए हो, सब हो सकता है। इसके अलावा 24 घंटे ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग की सहूलत भी।
बस बस बस, मेरे सारे मसले हल हो गए, बस अब शादी रह गई।
तो आप अभी www.bop.com.pk विजिट करें और अपना रोशन डिजिटल अकाउंट बिल्कुल मुफ्त खुलवाएं। बैंक ऑफ पंजाब, रखे हर फर्द का ख्याल।
Discover the ultimate South Asian fashion at Dage. The most desirable wardrobe styling from famous Pakistani designers. One of the largest clothing stores in Toronto. Plan a visit today or shop online at dagefashions.com.
Come on in.
This is your new home, Mira.
परदेस चली एक नन्ही परी सहमी सी
Mira.
थोड़ी डरी खुशबू में घुला मिला कोई अपना नसीब से गिरूं सजदे अपने वहीद के Would you like to try some?
Mira. Sab theek hai.
Paneer biryani favorite.
Are you a real estate investor or corporate real estate agent? Did you know smart real estate investors and agents have been using a virtual real estate investment financial strategy to reduce and eliminate their personal, corporate, and estate taxes? Call and let me show you how.
Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on The Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on The Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. A real pleasure of mine tonight to be chatting with Murray Simser, who is the CEO and founder of a company called Citizen. And we've been talking, Murray, about what it is. And it sounds to me like it's a polling company, but you're saying it's not a polling company.
If a polling company's job today is to be the best expression of what people want, then in that sense, it's a polling company.
Okay.
But it's not a polling company in the sense that we're not trying to compete with polling companies to do the jobs that they do. We're not going to be a shop for hire. We're not going to be, partisan in any way. Our system is going to be developed with an eye towards having people actively participate as good civic agents in a society. First. Second, to educate the people who may not have our knowledge of politics. So that everybody can be elevated to a level where they can actively participate.
How do you get that? Because a lot of people don't want that. I was interested, this truck convoy protest in Ottawa. You had a bunch of different reporters that were walking around. And what they reported back was the people didn't listen to or watch regular media. They frankly didn't trust regular media. Most of them called regular media fake media. They got their news from some Facebook site, some QAnon person, or some, some of them from a white supremacist, just different groups. And they were generally not believers that COVID was real, and or in vaccines, and or in masks, and or in physical or social distancing. And so they weren't listening to public health. They weren't listening to the mainstream at all. They were completely out of the mainstream.
Yes.
And the problem is, none of them wanted to be part of the mainstream. They were happy living in their world. How are you going to get them to become your educated civic actors?
Well, let's start with an assumption that if you look at the data and you look around our country, you would assume right now that everybody's a nut, okay? Because everybody is just out at the extremes, or so it would seem according to the media. That's not true. And this is the difficulty that we face today. The exact output of the algorithms I talked about from 2012 to now is the fact that the perception is that our countries are on fire, Canada's coming apart at the seams, nobody wants to get along, nobody wants to listen and talk. It turns out it's not true. And I don't mean it's not true in some conspiratorial way that you're hearing now out in this sort of space, but the data is unequivocal on this point, okay? Loud mouths always get all the airtime.
Right.
Emotional, rage-filled, invective is always going to go 6 to 10 times further faster than anything that is reasonable, rational.
Because it makes for good TV.
You got it. Okay, Marshall, let's channel our Marshall McLuhan. Okay, he knew this back when TV was on. The medium is the message. Okay, and this is important because the medium right now is not intending to help you get your message across. In fact, it's intending to put you into, we used to call it the sort of boob tube when we were a kid, a TV. It's actually trying to put you into a one-way relationship where you are receiving dopamine hits in your brain.
Okay, but how are you going to change that?
Well, because we're going to give them a dopamine hit that's way more powerful than the dopamine hit that these guys are giving them. These guys are giving them cheap dopamine hits. It doesn't do anything for the individual. We're actually going to elevate people to the position of power they deserve to be in a civil society like ours.
How do you do that?
And the mechanism is proven by the Stanford study, America in One Room. It turns out that crazy doesn't exist. 70% of the population, okay, and that includes both sides of sort of the spectrum, whatever your spectrum is, they're reasonable, and they say nothing. The statistics on this are unequivocal. If given the option to play in the cuckoo land, like today, or in a land where moderated discourse can prevail, it turns out that mothers and fathers and parents and brothers and sisters and business owners, they would prefer to focus on something that's going to rationally help them, okay? That's 70% of the population. Now, you would expect to have tails in that distribution that are somewhat smaller, 15% on either side, that are extreme in their views. And that's reasonable, and that's normal. American One Room took 500 people, brought them together into a weekend, and tried to prove the thesis I just described. And they did.
But that's because they're actually talking to one another.
Correct.
You
And
got to
they will
force
be
them
true
to.
citizens.
You got to force them to talk to one another, and the vast majority of Canadians or Americans don't want to talk to one another. Regrettably,
Absolutely.
they got stuck in their little echo chamber, and that's who they talk to.
That's right.
I can't tell you how many people, like really nice people, told me that they watched Tucker Carlson rant against Trudeau, and it was a crazy rant.
It was nuts, and it was yesterday. And
But they watched it.
It was absolute ad hominem, base level stuff, and they loved it. Okay, now let me be clear on this point. Having lived in the United States 15 years, I've seen Tucker Carlson evolve into entertainment news from sort of news. Okay, we'll call it sort of news, fair and balanced over here, to now it's just entertainment. Okay, like he's really gone completely the other way. But the reality of it is, American One Room, the study makes it crystal clear. So the weekend, 500 people, they showed them how to moderated talk, solve all problems. People from urban, New Orleans and Montana rural got together, and 70% of them were intractably opposed to listening. This is exactly what you just said, and it's fact. By the end of the weekend, only 30% were intractably opposed. But more than that, the mechanism that they used to solve the problem brought out the humanity in people. And this is what's wrong now. We are not humans anymore. We are literally an eyeball staring at something. And if we want to go back to the core of the message, the medium is the message. And the mediums we are using to interface with each other and government on matters of democracy and state are destroying our country. Full stop.
Destroying our countries. Okay. Everything you say, I agree with, and I understand, and yet it's idealistic. How the heck are you going to change it?
Well, in Canada,
I got to give you another example if I could. Okay? Yeah, because I was aghast at this. CBC, our national network, was doing a shot of the truck convoy protest from an up high position looking at Parliament Hill. And right in the center was an 18-wheeler that said, F you blank K Trudeau.
Yep.
And they left it there for 3 days. Why? Like, why have such incendiary language? Like, they could have moved the TV shot a little bit, but it was because it was so incendiary, they must have loved it. It was disgusting.
Yes.
Regular people don't talk like that.
Regular people don't want to see nonsense like that either.
But they did it.
But they did
Our
it.
national
Why'd they do
network.
it? Even they are subject to the vagaries of views, okay? CBC, for having lived in the United States quite a while, I know the difference between CBC and NPR, okay? One is a state-funded entity, the other is a people-funded entity. The state-funded entity, whether you like it or not, and I'm a lover of Canadian everything, including the CBC and the old logos and I have the T-shirts, a state-funded agency is subjected to the vagaries of the state that's funding it. This is inevitable. If you don't believe that, then you don't understand the power pressures that exist inside
I had
of the
someone
CBC
tell me that when the Conservatives were in power, all of the logos at the CBC were converted to blue, and then when the Liberals came back, they converted all their logos to red. Is that true?
I don't think it. I think it's true in somebody's mind that there's this sort of ebbing and flowing, with it. Power doesn't work like that. It doesn't, turn on and off just because somebody new's shown up. Power is like water; it always finds a way. And I think the CBC does what it can to be as objective and independent and journalistically in integrity. In everything that they do. But the fact of the matter is, it's not possible to achieve that when you have power constraints that are around you that can exercise. As a CEO, I know how to exercise power. If I was the funder of the CBC, I would be able to control everything in it. That's just the nature of power. In NPR, it's the same thing. It's a different type of funding. It's people funding it, but now they're subjected to the vagaries of, say, the charitable, hey, can you give us money? Can you give us money? Can you give us money? All of the media environment, the reason they put that F. Trudeau truck picture up there is because they're desperate for people to click on and to watch this stuff. It's an advertising-based issue for the CBC. There's only so much funding to go around, and they have the largest journalistic pool there is. So their costs are astronomical by comparison to any other journalistic outfit that is resizing itself, and the CBC needs to find its way. And I don't blame them for doing it. If I was running it, I would want shots that were going to capture the attention of my TV viewers. I mean, that seems rational.
Okay. What are you going to do?
Yeah. So on July 1st this year, we are launching 2 apps, a Citizen Android, Citizen iOS app. The day you download those things, the citizenry of this country will be able to immediately understand the state of play in the government. And, number 2, they will be able to opine about that in such a way that it can't be ignored. So that structure, the simplicity of an app on your phone, the concept of no training needed to participate in government, AI-engineered education that gives you what you need so that you can come up to the level on the issue you're looking at, unbiased media and news feeding into that information and education, and ultimately the request for your opinion about certain items and things, all tracked in the most complex political data set that's ever been there, and then we are going to sell access to that. And the people will get all the profits from it in the structure that we're proposing.
And that's going to provide the dopamine hit?
That's going to provide the dopamine hit because it's a level 4.5 Maslow dopamine hit, not a level 2 or 3 level dopamine hit.
Can you actually get cash?
Power.
But if your system works, then what you're going to do is you're going to create majority rule. And you're not going to have minority protection, are you?
Well, in a manner of speaking, you might. But don't forget, I'm not proposing to dismantle the government. We want the government to stay as it is. Parties, legislature, all of that should remain. That system, that's their job. The system that Citizen has, the job of Citizen, is to give the best information to that system so they can start to do the business of government, not the business of fighting with each other.
I want to wish you all the best because I think this is a fantastic effort. If we want to follow your progress, what do we do? Or do we have to just wait till July 1st to download the app?
No, you can definitely, social media, CITIZN, anywhere on social media in a Google search, you'll definitely find us. But also check our website out, citizen.world, CITIZN. World.
.world.
Yeah.
Didn't even know there was a suffix .world.
All of the entire domain system now can have roughly any name after dot. So there's all kinds of them that have started to be sold.
Barry Simser, President, CEO, and founder of Citizen. I'm going to change our democracy. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Brian, for having me on.
I think that is a spectacular objective, very idealistic. I really do think that too many of us are living in this echo chamber, and partisanship and extremism has become sort of the thing of the day, if not the last decade, frankly. And I really wonder. I wonder where the red Tories are and where the blue conservative. Sorry, the red conservative. What is it? The red Tories and the blue Liberals are.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's where the vast majority of people in Canada really
Maybe
live.
they're centrists.
And I don't see any political party, not the Progressive Conservative Party, not the Conservative Party, not the Liberal Party, actually representing what I think of both the Bill Davis Progressive Conservatives or the Brian Mulroney Progressive Conservatives or the John Turner, Paul Martin, William Lyon Mackenzie King Liberals. We've gone.
But not forgotten. And I think we've got a brighter future together if we can pull it off.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. And July 1st, check out Murray Simser's Citizen. Good night, everybody.
आज ही सोनी धरती ऐप डाउनलोड कीजिए और रजिस्टर हो जाइए, क्योंकि आपके दम से ही है पाकिस्तान की तरक्की और खुशहाली। सोनी धरती रेमिटेंस प्रोग्राम, हमेशा अपनों के करीब। हुकूमत पाकिस्तान, स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान और मालियाती इदारों की जानिब से